Maria Santos had always been told her voice was too soft for the military. The other soldiers would laugh when she spoke during training. They said she sounded like a child, not a warrior. But Maria kept her head down and did her job on the mining colony of New Dakota. The red suns were setting when the alarm started screaming. Maria grabbed her rifle and ran to the main gate with the rest of her squad. Captain Luke Mitchell was already there, his face hard as stone. He pointed to the horizon where a dark shape was moving toward them. HFY War beast, he said. Single unit, but that's enough to kill us all. Maria had never seen one before. The creature stood 12 feet tall and moved like liquid death. Its body was covered in crystal plates that caught the red light of the dying suns. 6 eyes blazed like fire on its massive head. Each step it took shook the ground beneath their feet. The beast came straight at them with no fear. Private Danny Clark fired first, his plasma rifle sending bright bolts toward the creature. The shots hit the crystal armor and did nothing. The beast kept coming. It raised one arm, and Maria saw claws as long as swords spread out. Mitchell shouted, "Keep your distance and aim for the joints." The squad scattered, but the beast was too fast. It jumped over their defensive wall like it was nothing. Danny Clark screamed as the claws tore through his chest. The sound cut off suddenly. Billy Harper tried to run, but the creature's tail whipped around and sent him flying into a wall. Maria found herself alone with the beast. It turned those 6 burning eyes toward her, and she could feel its rage like heat from a fire. She raised her rifle, but her hands were shaking too much to aim. The creature took a step toward her, then another. She could smell its breath, like metal and blood. Something inside Maria broke. Not in a bad way, but like a dam bursting. She opened her mouth, and instead of screaming, she sang. It was a lullaby her grandmother had sung to her when she was little. The words came in her grandmother's language, soft and flowing like water. The war beast stopped. Its massive head tilted to one side like a confused dog. The blazing eyes dimmed to a soft glow. Maria kept singing, her voice growing stronger with each note. The creature lowered its claws and took a step back through her song. Maria felt something impossible. She could sense the beast's emotions like they were her own. There was anger, yes, but underneath that was something else. Loneliness. Deep, endless loneliness that made her heart ache. The crystal plates on the creature's body began to glow with a soft blue light. It was beautiful, like stars reflected. In water, the beast made a sound low and musical. It was trying to sing back to her. Maria changed her song, making it deeper and more complex. The creature's response grew stronger. They were having a conversation without words, sharing feelings that had no names. The beast told her about darkness and pain and being forced to fight. Maria sang back about home and safety and the warmth of being understood. The other soldiers watched in amazement. Captain Mitchell slowly lowered his weapon. The war beast that had killed 2 of his men in seconds was now swaying gently to Maria's song like a child being rocked to sleep. Maria could feel the creature's memories flowing through the music. It had not always been a weapon. Once long ago, it had been something gentle and peaceful. She saw flashes of a green world under purple skies, of creatures like this one living in harmony. Then came fire and death, and the memory went dark. The beast reached out with one massive claw and touched Maria's forehead. The contact was gentle, like a parent blessing a child. In that moment, she understood everything. This creature had been made to fight, changed from what it truly was. Deep inside, it was still that gentle being from the green world. Trapped and screaming silently, Maria's song came to an end. The war beast looked at her for a long moment, its 6 eyes now soft and sad. Then it turned and walked away, its crystal armor catching the last light of the setting suns. It did not look back. The other soldiers stared at Maria in silence. She could hear Captain Mitchell breathing hard behind her. In the distance, Danny Clark was groaning, which meant he was still alive. Billy Harper was sitting up against the wall, holding his head. "What just happened?" Mitchell asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Maria did not know how to answer. She had sung to a war beast, and it had listened. More than that, it had understood. She had felt its pain and loneliness as if they were her own. The experience had changed something inside her, opened a door she had not known existed. "I think," she said slowly, "I think it was trying to tell me something." Mitchell helped her stand. Her legs were shaking, but she felt strangely calm. Huh? War Beast was gone, but she could still feel an echo of its presence in her mind. It was out there somewhere, carrying a piece of her song with it. "We need to report this," Mitchell said. "Command will want to know immediately." As they walked back to the base, Maria looked up at the stars. They seemed different now, less cold and distant. Somewhere out there were more creatures like the one she had met. All of them trapped in bodies made for war. All of them remembering a time when they had been something else Maria Santos had found. Her purpose. Her soft voice, the one everyone said was too weak for the military, had done something no weapon could do. It had reached across the vast gap between species and touched the heart of an enemy. She did not know it yet, but that moment would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The red suns finally set, leaving New Dakota in darkness. But Maria carried a light inside her now, a song that could bridge any distance and heal any wound. She would need that light in the days to come when the real war began. Dr. Eleni Rodriguez stared at the video recording for the 10th time. She could not believe what she was seeing. The data from New Dakota showed something that should have been impossible. A human soldier had stopped the HFY War beast with nothing but her voice. Elena was the best xenobiologist in human space. She had studied alien life forms for 20 years. She knew everything there was to know about the HFY. They were perfect weapons, bred for war and nothing else. They felt no pain, showed no mercy, and never retreated. The idea that one would stop to listen to human music was beyond ridiculous. "Play it again," she told Jake Morrison, the communications officer aboard the research ship Horizon. Jake was a good man, patient and careful with details. He had been helping Elena analyze the recordings from New Dakota for 3 days now. The video showed Maria Santos singing to the war beast. The creature's behavior was unlike anything Elena had ever seen. It tilted its head like it was listening carefully. Its crystal armor changed color from angry red to peaceful blue. Most shocking of all, it seemed to be trying to sing back. "Audio analysis is complete," Jake said, pulling up another screen. "The frequency patterns are incredible. Look at this." Elena studied the sound waves displayed on the monitor. Maria's voice created complex patterns that seemed to match the bioelectric fields generated by HFY nervous systems. It was as if the human voice and the alien brain were designed to work together. "This cannot be a coincidence," Elena muttered. "There has to be a scientific explanation." She had requested all available data about the HFY from military archives. Most of it was classified, but Elena had high security clearance. What she found made her stomach turn. The HFY had not always been war beasts. They had once been a peaceful species called the Kethmarth. Original Kethmer had been empathic, creatures who lived in harmony with their environment. They communicated through harmonic vibrations, creating complex songs that could express emotions and ideas. Their entire civilization had been based on music and shared feelings. Then, Zenthari Empire had arrived. Elena found records of the invasion, cold military reports that described the systematic destruction of the Kethmer homeworld. The Centauri had not just conquered the planet. They had taken survivors and changed them. The genetic modifications were horrifying. The Centauri had altered the Kethmer at the cellular level, turning them into living weapons. They had suppressed the empathic abilities and enhanced the aggressive instincts. The peaceful singers had become mindless killers, but the genetic memory was still there, buried deep in their DNA. The modifications had not completely erased what they had been. It was like covering a beautiful painting with black paint. The original art was still underneath, waiting to be revealed. Elena called Captain Nathan Brooks to her lab. Brooks was the military liaison to the research team, a serious man who understood the importance of their work. He arrived within minutes, his face showing the strain of the past few days. "What have you found?" he asked. Without preamble, Anna showed him the genetic analysis. The Kethva are not natural war beasts. They were artificially created from a peaceful species. The Centauri Empire committed genocide and then used the survivors as weapons. Brooks studied the data with growing horror. How is this possible? The Kethver have been fighting for the Centauri for centuries. Genetic conditioning, Elena explained. The Centauri broke their minds and rebuilt them for war. But they could not completely erase the original nature. It is still there, dormant but intact. Jake pulled up another screen, showing the audio analysis. This is where it gets interesting. Human vocal patterns, when arranged in specific ways, can resonate with the suppressed Kethmer neural pathways. Maria Santos accidentally triggered their original empathic abilities. "You are saying we can communicate with them?" Brooks asked. "More than that," Elena said. "We might be able to help them remember what they really are." The song Maria sang. It was not just communication. It was therapy. She was helping that creature heal. The implications were staggering. If humans could reach the buried consciousness of the Kethvar, they might be able to turn the tide of the war. But Elena had serious concerns about the ethics of such an approach. "These are sentient beings," she said. "They have been enslaved and tortured for generations. We cannot just use them as weapons, even if they would fight for us instead of against us." Brooks nodded grimly. "I understand your concerns, but right now they are killing humans. If we can stop that, we have a moral obligation to try." Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent alert from the ship's sensors. Jake ran to his station, and his face went pale as he read the displays. "We have a problem," he said. "Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching the edge of the system. It is the largest Kethver force we have ever seen." Elena felt her heart sink. The Centauri must have learned about what happened on New Dakota. They were sending an overwhelming force to destroy any evidence of human Kethver communication. But as the sensor data came in, something strange became apparent. The fleet was not in attack formation. They were moving slowly, almost carefully. And the sensors were picking up something else. "Are you getting this?" Jake asked, his voice filled with wonder. Elena listened through the ship's communication system. It was faint, but unmistakable. The Kethver fleet was singing. Thousands of voices joined together in a complex harmony that could be heard across the vacuum of space. "They heard her," Elena whispered. Maria's song reached them somehow. "They are trying to sing back." The sound was hauntingly beautiful. It spoke of loss and longing, of creatures trying to remember who they had been before the war. Elena realized she was crying as she listened. To the alien chorus. "What do we do?" Brooks asked. Elena wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. "We answer them. We get Maria Santos up here, and we sing back. These beings have been suffering for centuries. It is time to help them heal." Jake was already preparing the communication array. "I can boost the signal across multiple frequencies. If we do this right, we can reach every beast in that fleet," Elena nodded. "Then we had better do it right. The future of two species may depend on it, As the horizon prepared to make contact with the approaching fleet, Elena thought about the courage it would take. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before. They were going to try to heal the wounds of war with nothing but the power of song. The HFY fleet continued its approach, their voices growing stronger with each passing hour. Elena could hear hope in their alien songs, a desperate plea for understanding and freedom. She prayed that Maria Santos would be able to answer that call. Stars seemed to hold their breath as two species prepared to speak to each other across the vast darkness of space. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Elena Rodriguez dared to hope that peace might be possible. Admiral Susan Clark had never seen anything like it. The HFY fleet stretched across space like a dark cloud, thousands of war beasts in formation. It was the largest alien force ever assembled near human space. Her defensive fleet looked tiny in comparison. Battle stations, she ordered from the bridge of her flagship. All ships prepare for combat. The human fleet took defensive positions around the research vessel horizon. Clark knew they could not win this fight. The HFY war beasts were too powerful, too numerous. But they would die fighting as humans. Always died in the horizon. Maria Santos stood in the communication center with Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Jake Morrison. She had been brought up from New Dakota as soon as the fleet was detected. Her hands were shaking as she looked at the massive alien force on the main screen. "They came because of me," she said quietly. "Because of what I did," Elena placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did nothing wrong. You showed them kindness when no one else would. That is not a crime." Jake was working frantically at his console, preparing the ship's communication array. "I can boost your voice across all frequencies. Every beast in that fleet will hear you clearly." Maria nodded, but she looked terrified. "What if I make things worse? What if they attack because of what I do?" "Then we will face that together," Elena said. "But I do not think they came here to fight." Listen to them. The alien songs drifted through the ship's speakers. Thousands of voices joined in harmony. There was sadness in the music, and longing, and something else. Hope. They were not singing war songs. They were singing songs of remembrance. Admiral Clark's voice came through the communication system. "Horizon, you are ordered to maintain radio silence. We will not provoke them." Elena looked at Maria and Jake. They all knew what had to be done. "Jake, disable the command channel. We are going to answer them. That is direct disobedience." Jake said. "Then we will be court-martialed together," Elena replied. "But we will not this chance pass. These beings have been suffering for centuries. We have to try." Jake nodded and began working at his console. "Command channel is down. We are on our own frequency now." Maria stepped up to the microphone. She closed her eyes and listened to the alien chorus. Their voices were calling to her across the darkness, begging her to understand. She had to answer. She began to sing, starting with the same lullaby she had used on New Dakota. Her voice was small at first, barely a whisper, but Jake's equipment amplified it and sent it racing across space toward the alien fleet. The response was immediate. The HFY songs changed, becoming more complex and beautiful. They were singing back to her, their voices blending with hers in perfect harmony. Maria felt tears rolling down her cheeks as she sensed their emotions. Through the music, she could feel their pain. Generation after generation of forced servitude, their true nature buried under layers of genetic conditioning. But deeper than the pain was something else. Love. They still loved each other, still remembered what it meant to be family. Maria changed her song, making it deeper and more complex. She sang about home and safety and the warmth of being understood. The alien voices responded, telling her about their lost world and their desperate hope for freedom on the bridge of her flagship. Admiral Clark watched in amazement as the entire HFY fleet began to change course. They were not attacking. The human ships. They were moving past them, heading deeper into space. Where are they going? Her tactical officer asked. Clark studied the navigation displays. They are heading toward Zenthari space. All of them. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The HFY war beasts were not just listening to the human song. They were remembering who they really were. And they were angry. Maria's song continued, growing stronger with each note. She could feel the alien consciousness responding, awakening from a sleep that had lasted for centuries. The genetic locks that kept them obedient to the Zenthari were weakening. Through the music, she sensed something incredible happening. The war beasts were communicating with each other, sharing memories and emotions that had been suppressed for generations. They were becoming a people again, not just weapons. Captain Rebecca Walsh monitored the situation from the Horizon's bridge. The fleet is accelerating. They are moving at maximum speed toward the Zenthari border. Elena joined her at the observation deck. They are going home. Not to their lost world, but to face the ones who destroyed it. The alien songs were changing. Again, the sadness was fading, replaced by something else. Determination. For the first time in centuries, the HFY were choosing their own path. Maria's voice began to crack from the strain. She had been singing for over an hour, maintaining the connection with thousands of alien minds. Jake brought her water, but she waved it away. She could not stop now. Through the music, she felt the moment when the last genetic lock broke. The HFY were free. They were no longer weapons or slaves. They were themselves again, and they were going to take back what had been stolen from them. The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the human ships alone in the darkness. The sudden silence was deafening. Maria collapsed into a chair, her voice finally giving out. "Did we do the right thing?" she asked hoarsely. Elena looked out at the stars where the alien fleet had vanished. "We gave them back their choice. What they do with it is up to them." Reports began coming in from across the galaxy. HFY war beasts were turning against their Zenthari masters. Battles that had been won were suddenly being lost. The carefully maintained balance of power was collapsing. Admiral Clark arrived on the horizon within hours. She found Maria sleeping in the medical bay, her throat raw from singing. Elena and Jake were still analyzing the data from their communication attempt. "Do you realize what you have done?" Clark asked. "We helped enslaved beings remember their freedom," Elena replied. "If that changes the war, so be it." Clark studied the tactical reports flooding in from across the galaxy. The Zenthari Empire is in chaos. Their war beasts are rebelling everywhere. Some are attacking their former masters. Others are simply leaving. "What will happen to them?" Maria asked. She had awakened and was listening from her bed. "I do not know," Clark admitted. "But I think we are about to find out. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session. They want to know how humans manage to communicate with the HFY." Maria sat up slowly. "They want to use us to control the war beasts, perhaps," Clark said. "But that decision is not mine to make. It is yours. You are the one who can speak to them." Maria looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the HFY were fighting for their freedom. They had heard her song and remembered who they were. Now they were writing their own future. "Then I will speak for them," she said quietly. "Someone needs to." Elena smiled. "The galaxy is about to change, Maria, and you are going to be at the center of it." As the Horizon prepared to return to human space, Maria Santos knew her life would never be the same. She had become something unprecedented, a bridge between species. The war beasts trusted her, and that trust would either save the galaxy or destroy it. The stars held their secrets, but Maria carried something more powerful. She carried the hope of an enslaved people and the power to set them free. The real battle was just beginning. The Zenthari Empire was dying. Ambassador Richard Stone read the intelligence reports with growing amazement. In just 3 weeks, the most powerful military force in the galaxy had collapsed into chaos. HFY War beasts were rebelling on every world, turning their weapons against their former Master. Stone sat in his office on the diplomatic station orbiting Earth. Representatives from dozens of species had been arriving for days, all wanting to know the same thing. How had humanity managed to communicate with the HFY, and could they do it again? The answer to both questions was Maria Sentis. The young soldier had become the most important person in the galaxy almost overnight. Every species that had feared the HFY now looked to her as their potential savior d'or. Elena Rodriguez had been working around the clock to understand how Maria's ability worked. She had tested hundreds of volunteers, looking for others who could sing to the war beasts. The results were disappointing, but not hopeless. About 1 in 10,000 humans show the genetic markers, Elena reported to the emergency council meeting. Those with musical training do better, but natural ability seems to be the key factor. General Patricia Hayes, the military representative, leaned forward. How many people are we talking about? Maybe 30,000 in all of human space, Elena replied. But training them will take time. And we do not know if they will all be as effective as Maria. Maria herself sat quietly at the back of the room. She had become famous across the galaxy, but she did not seem to enjoy it. Stone had noticed how she avoided crowds and spoke only. When directly asked, the real question, said Dr. Kevin Murphy, the chief of alien affairs, is what the HFY want now. They are free from Xanthari control, but what are they going to do with that freedom? Reports from across the galaxy painted a confusing picture. Some HFY groups were attacking Xanthari worlds with savage fury. Others had simply disappeared, vanishing into the deep space beyond the rim. A few had tried to make contact with other species, but their attempts at communication were crude and often misunderstood. They are traumatized, Elena explained. Imagine being enslaved for centuries, forced to commit acts of violence against your nature. They do not know how to be free, Stone nodded, which is why the Galactic Council wants us to help. They are offering humanity a permanent seat on the Council in exchange for our assistance in negotiating with the HFY. It was an incredible opportunity. Humanity had been considered a minor species, barely worthy of notice. Now they were being offered a place among the galactic powers. But the price was high. They want us to control the HFY, Maria said quietly. To use them as weapons, just like the Xanthari did. Not all of them, Stone replied. Some council members genuinely want peace. But you are right about the others. They see this as an opportunity to gain power. Commander Paul Davis entered the room carrying a data pad. He had been leading joint patrols with some of the freed HFY, learning how to work with them. His reports had been fascinating. I have news from the front lines, he said. We have made contact with a HFY leader who calls himself Vortash. He wants to meet with Maria. Maria looked up with interest. What does he want? He claims to have information about the Xanthari that could change everything. But he will only share it with the human who freed his people. Elena frowned. It could be a trap. We know very little about HFY politics. Perhaps, Davis agreed. But Vortash has been helping us track down Xanthari holdouts. He seems genuinely committed to peace. Stone made the decision. We will arrange the meeting. But security will be tight. The meeting took place on a neutral station in the buffer zone between human and former Xanthari space. Maria arrived with a small escort, including Elena and Jake Morrison. The station was nearly empty. Cleared of all non-essential personnel, Vora was waiting in the main conference room. He was larger than the war beast Maria had encountered on New Dakota, but his crystal armor showed the same peaceful blue glow. When he saw Maria, he began to sing softly. Maria sang back, and the two of them established a connection. Through the music, she could feel his emotions. There was gratitude and hope and something else. Urgent need. He has something to show us. Maria translated. Something important. Vertash activated a holographic display. The images showed the destruction of the Kethmer homeworld, but from a perspective none of them had seen before. This was not recorded by human or Xanthari observers. This was Kethmer memory, passed down through generations. The truth was worse than anyone had imagined. The Xanthari had not just conquered the Kethmer world. They had destroyed it deliberately, testing new weapons of mass destruction. The peaceful species had been nothing more than test subjects, but that was not the worst part. The hologram showed the aftermath of the attack. Xanthari scientists had collected survivors, studying their empathic abilities. They had learned how to suppress those abilities and enhance aggressive instincts. The Kethmer had been the prototype. For what the Xanthari planned to do to other species, they were going to do this to everyone, Elena whispered. Turn entire species into weapons. Vertash sang again, and Maria listened carefully. Her face went pale as she understood his words. The Xanthari are not from this galaxy, she said. They are invaders from somewhere else. They came here to consume. Everything to turn all sentient life into tools for conquest. The implications were staggering. The Xanthari Empire had not been a normal imperial power. They had been a cancer, spreading through the galaxy and converting everything they touched into weapons of war. But they failed, Davis said. The Kethver rebellion has crippled them. Maria sang to Vertash again, asking for more information. His response made her eyes widen with fear. There are more, she said. The Xanthari we know are just the advance force. There are others coming from beyond the galactic rim. They will arrive soon. Stone felt his blood run cold. How soon? Less than a year, Maria replied. Unless we can find a way to stop them. Vertash continued his song, and Maria translated his words. The Kethvar had retained some memories of their original technology, knowledge that the Xanthari had thought was lost. They knew how to build weapons that could defend against the invasion, but they need help, Maria said. The Kethvar are warriors. Now, not builders. They need other species to work with them. Elena understood immediately. An alliance. Not the Xanthari Empire controlling everyone, but all the free species working together. Led by humans, Stone realized, because we are. The only ones who can communicate with the Kethvar. Maria stood up slowly. Then we had better start talking. There is not much time. As the meeting broke up, Stone reflected on how much had changed. 3 weeks ago, humanity had been a minor species struggling to survive. Now they were being asked to lead a galactic alliance against an invasion from beyond the stars. The war beasts that had once been their enemies were now their allies. The empire that had seemed invincible was crumbling. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, new enemies were approaching. Maria Santos had sung to a war beast and changed the fate of the galaxy. But the real test was yet to come. A battle for the future of all sentient life was about to begin. 6 months after Maria Santos first sang to a war beast, the galaxy was completely different. The Xanthari Empire had collapsed, leaving behind a power vacuum that dozens of species were trying to fill. But instead of fighting each other, they had done something unprecedented. They had formed an alliance. The Galactic Defense Coalition held its first official meeting on the ancient trading station of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Hall, their differences set aside in the face of a common threat. At the center of it all sat Maria Santos, now bearing the title of Harmonic Ambassador. She still looked young and uncertain, but her voice carried the authority of someone who had changed history. When she spoke, even the most powerful leaders listened. The Kethvar trusted her completely, and that trust had become the foundation of the new alliance. The enemy fleet will reach the Outer Rim in 3 months, reported Admiral Susan Clark, now serving as the Coalition's military coordinator. Our scouts have confirmed the size of the force. It is 10 times larger than anything the Xanthari ever assembled. A ripple of fear passed through the assembled delegates. The original Xanthari invasion force had been bad enough. The idea of facing something 10 times worse was almost too much to Burver Tash. The Kethver leader began to sing. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying across the hall like music made of starlight. Maria listened carefully, then translated. His words, he says the enemy calls themselves the Devourers. They do not conquer worlds, they consume them. Everything they touch becomes part of their collective consciousness. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood up from her seat in the human delegation. We have been studying the Kethver memory records. The Devourers are not just invaders, they are a plague. They have consumed entire galaxies, but they can be stopped, said Commander Paul Davis. The Kethver remember weapons that worked against them. Technology that the Xanthari tried to suppress. The Coalition had been working frantically to rebuild. That lost technology. The Kethvar provided the knowledge, while the other species supplied the resources and manufacturing capability. It was the largest cooperative effort in galactic history. The harmony generators are almost complete, reported Dr. Lisa Chun, the chief engineer of the project. We have built 50 of them, hidden throughout the galaxy. When activated, they will create a resonance field that disrupts the Devourer collective. The weapons were based on the same principles that allowed humans to communicate with the Kethvar. They used harmonic frequencies to affect alien nervous systems, but on a massive scale. The idea was to break the mental links that held the Devourer fleet together. What about the Kethver themselves? Asked Ambassador Richard Stone. Are they ready for battle? Maria sang to Vortash, asking about his people's preparations. His response made her smile for the first time in weeks. They are not just ready, she said. They are eager. This is their chance to avenge their homeworld and protect their new allies. The Kethver transformation had been remarkable. Working with human therapists and alien counselors, they had learned to control their warrior instincts while recovering their empathic abilities. They were becoming the people they had been meant to be. The healing centers are working beyond our expectations, reported Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who had been leading the therapy program. The Kethver are not just recovering from their trauma. They are becoming stronger than they were before. The centers used music therapy combined with advanced medical treatment. Human singers worked with Kethva patients, helping them process centuries of suppressed memories and emotions. It was slow work, but the results were incredible. Maria herself had become the most skilled therapist, able to reach even the most damaged individuals. She spent hours each day singing to traumatized war beasts, helping them remember what peace felt like. It was exhausting work, but she never complained. The real test will come when the Devourers arrive, said General Patricia Hayes. All our preparations mean nothing if we cannot work together in battle. The Coalition had been running joint exercises for months, learning how to coordinate forces from dozens of different species. The Kethver were naturally suited for the task, their empathic abilities allowing them to sense the emotions and intentions of their allies. We are as ready as we can be, Stone said. The question is whether it will be enough. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent alert. Jake Morrison, now serving as the Coalition's communications director, burst into the hall with his face pale with shock. They are here, he said. The Devourer fleet has emerged from hyperspace at the Rim. They are 3 months early. Chaos erupted in the hall as delegates rushed to their communication stations. Maria remained calm, singing a soft melody that helped to steady the nerves of everyone present. Her voice had become a source of strength for the entire Coalition. How long do we have? Admiral Clark asked. 18 hours until they reach the outer colonies, Jake replied. The harmony generators are not all in position yet. Vertash began to sing urgently, his voice filled with determination. Maria listened, then nodded. He says the Kethver will buy us time. They are going to engage the enemy fleet directly. The coalition fleet launched within hours. Maria found herself aboard the flagship alongside Admiral Clark and Vertash. The Kethver leader had insisted on fighting beside the humans who had freed his people. Other ships carried mixed crews from every species in the Alliance. As they approached the battle zone, Maria could see the Devourer fleet through the main view screen. The ships were unlike anything she had ever seen. They seemed to be alive, pulsing with dark energy that made her skin crawl. There were thousands of them, stretching across space like a plague of insects. "Beginning harmony generator activation," reported Dr. Chun from the engineering station. "We need to get closer for maximum effect." The battle began with a fury that shook the stars themselves. The Devourer ships moved with perfect coordination, their collective consciousness allowing them to act as one massive organism. But the coalition had advantages of their own. The Kethver fought with a skill and determination that amazed their allies. They were no longer mindless weapons, but thinking warriors, able to adapt and innovate in the heat of battle. Their empathic abilities allowed them to anticipate enemy movements and coordinate their attacks. Maria sang throughout the battle, her voice carrying across the communication channels to every ship in the fleet. The melody helped to calm frightened crews and strengthen the resolve of the warriors. More importantly, it kept the Kethver focused on their true nature instead of falling back into their old programming. "Harmony generators at full power," Chun announced. "The resonance field is building." The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate. The perfect coordination began to break down as individual ships lost contact with the collective. Some began firing on their own allies, while others simply stopped moving, but the enemy was not helpless. They began to adapt, changing their communication frequencies to avoid the harmonic disruption. The battle became a deadly dance of technology and willpower. "They are learning too fast," Admiral Clark said grimly. "We need to finish this quickly." Vertash sang a new song, one that Maria had never heard before. It was the ancient battle hymn of the Kethmer, passed down through genetic memory from before the fall of their homeworld. Other Kethver voices joined in, creating a chorus that could be heard across the entire battlefield. The song had an incredible effect. The Kethver began to fight with renewed fury, but it was not the mindless rage of their warrior programming. This was righteous anger, the wrath of a people who had suffered too long and would suffer no more. "The enemy is breaking," reported the tactical officer. "Their formation is collapsing." Maria watched in amazement as the Devourer fleet began to retreat. The collective consciousness that had made them so dangerous was also their weakness. When the harmony generators disrupted their mental links, they became confused and afraid. "Let them go," she said. "They have learned that this galaxy is protected." The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The coalition had proven that they could work together, but maintaining the alliance would require constant effort. There would be other threats, other challenges to face. Maria stood on the observation deck of the flagship, watching the stars return to their peaceful glow. Vertash joined her, his crystal armor reflecting the starlight like a living constellation. "Your people are free," she said, singing the words in the ancient Kethmer language she had learned. "What will you do now?" His response was filled with hope and determination. "We will help others find their freedom. We will sing the songs of peace to any who will listen. And we will never forget the human who taught us to remember our true selves." The galaxy had been saved, but more than that, it had been healed. The Kethver were no longer weapons, but teachers, sharing their hard-won wisdom with others who had suffered oppression. The alliance they had forged would last for generations. Maria Santos had begun her journey as a soldier with a voice too soft for war. She had become something far more powerful, a bridge between species and a voice for the voiceless. The stars themselves seemed to sing with the harmony she had helped create. The future was bright with possibility. There would be challenges ahead, but the galaxy had learned an important lesson. When